The story of Atlantis has captivated humanity for over 2 millennia, not merely because of its legendary destruction, but because of the intricate clues that suggest a civilization far older and more advanced than we once believed. Before we dive into the submerged ruins and secret operations, it is essential to establish the foundation, the evidence that stands the test of reason, the maps, the writings, and the geological truths that hint at a civilization forgotten by time. The journey begins with Plato's detailed account, which, for centuries, was dismissed as allegory or moral fable. He spoke of an island larger than Libya and Asia combined, a naval empire with unparalleled engineering, wealth, and military prowess. But when researchers examined ancient Egyptian records, particularly the testimony passed through Solon, something remarkable emerged. Egypt's priests had knowledge of a civilization existing thousands of years before the recorded history of Athens, and their descriptions matched Plato's account more than anyone dared to imagine. Modern cartographers and historians began scrutinizing ancient maps. The Piri Reis map, compiled in 1513, depicted South America with astonishing accuracy, including coastlines, rivers, and mountains. More astonishing, it showed Antarctica without ice, suggesting the mapmakers had access to information from a time before the continent was covered in ice. How could 16th century explorers have known such details unless they inherited knowledge from a civilization predating the known histories? Alongside these maps, geological studies revealed submerged coastlines that match ancient timelines. Sea levels 12,000 years ago were significantly lower than today, exposing vast areas of land now beneath the ocean. Entire continental shelves, previously believed uninhabitable, could have supported thriving settlements. These regions correspond precisely with locations that theories about Atlantis and other advanced civilizations have long suggested. Across multiple continents, anomalies appear, remnants of structures, stone formations, and artifacts inconsistent with known history. In the Mediterranean, underwater ruins off the coast of Crete hint at sophisticated maritime architecture predating the Minoans. Near the Bahamas, the Bimini Road presents large rectangular stone blocks arranged in linear formations, defying natural explanations. Japan's Yonaguni Monument displays terraces, staircases, and sharp right angles carved into massive stone, again pointing to human engineering thousands of years older than current timelines allow. Even the submerged city of Dwarka in India matches ancient legends almost perfectly, including locations, structures, and measurements. The convergence of these sites points to a global pattern. Multiple cultures around the world preserved stories of a civilization wiped out by floods and natural cataclysms. The Sumerians spoke of the antediluvian kings. The Egyptians recorded great floods that reshaped the Nile basin, and Native American myths described watery destructions of empires before recorded history. Far more than coincidence, these consistent narratives suggest a civilization with global influence that was erased from conventional records, yet left traces in oral history, maps, and physical remnants. A significant piece of evidence comes from satellite imagery. The Eye of the Sahara, or Richat structure, presents concentric circles strikingly similar to Plato's description of Atlantis's capital city. Massive erosion channels and evidence of ancient floods suggest that the region once held water, perhaps even functioning as a harbor or navigable canal system. Ancient tools and pottery shards discovered in the region indicate human presence far older than previously assumed. Could this massive circular formation, buried in the heart of Mauritania, be the footprint of a civilization that spanned continents?
Moreover, the study of ancient metallurgy provides further clues. Plato described a mysterious metal, orichalcum, more valuable than gold. Modern research into ancient alloys suggests that civilizations possessed techniques of smelting and metalworking lost to history. Artifacts found across various submerged sites indicate metals with properties and compositions not reproducible with current technology, hinting at a knowledge base that was suddenly erased when the cataclysm struck.
The global map theory becomes more compelling when all of these factors, maps, geological evidence, artifacts, and ancient narratives are considered together. They suggest not only the existence of a lost civilization, but a highly advanced one, capable of understanding geography, astronomy, and engineering on a planetary scale. If this is true, Atlantis was not an isolated island, but a hub in a network of pre-Ice Age civilizations, spread across continents, sharing knowledge that humanity would later forget.
Yet, despite the abundance of evidence, mainstream science remains cautious. The physical traces are scattered, often submerged or buried beneath millennia of sediment. Ancient maps are incomplete, prone to misinterpretation. Legends are fragmented, transformed over time by oral tradition. But the pattern, when examined globally, is impossible to ignore. Every clue points to a civilization with capabilities that rival or exceed our understanding of the ancient world, wiped out not gradually, but suddenly, leaving behind fragments carefully hidden in plain sight. It is in this context that we must ask ourselves, could Atlantis have been the origin of knowledge, later appearing in civilizations such as Egypt, Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and Mesoamerica? Could the pyramids, the astronomical alignments, and the sudden technological leaps have roots in a civilization that predates recorded history by thousands of years? The implications are staggering, suggesting that our current timeline of human advancement is not linear, but a phoenix-like cycle of rise, destruction, and rebirth. For those willing to examine the evidence without prejudice, the global map theory does not merely hint at Atlantis. It positions it as a central node in a planetary network of forgotten knowledge. Every map, every submerged city, every artifact recovered from beneath the waves or deserts of the world speaks to a civilization that existed on a scale modern humanity struggles to comprehend. And the question lingers, persistent and haunting. If Atlantis existed, what other wonders of the ancient world remain hidden, waiting for discovery beneath oceans, sands, and centuries of silence?
The investigation continues, and each new discovery strengthens the pattern. The maps, the geology, the structures, and the myths all converge toward one undeniable truth. Atlantis may have been far more than a story. It may have been a global reality, meticulously erased, yet leaving enough traces for those brave enough to connect them. And as researchers follow the clues, the world may soon realize that the lost civilization Plato described was not only real, it may have been the cradle of human knowledge, the origin of ideas that shaped our history in ways we are only beginning to understand.
From the very beginning, long before the great floods and long before oceans claimed entire continents, there existed a civilization whose rise remains one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Atlantis did not simply appear. It emerged from a deep lineage of knowledge older than any recorded timeline. To understand its origin, we must travel far back into what ancient cultures called the Age of the First Dawn, a period when Earth's climate, geography, and even magnetic fields were dramatically different, and when humanity may have been guided by influences we are only beginning to rediscover.
According to ancient traditions preserved in Egypt, Sumer, and the Americas, the earliest founders of Atlantis were not ordinary settlers. They were described as enlightened teachers, people of exceptional knowledge and skill, sometimes called the Shining Ones, or those who came from the sacred lands. Egyptian priests spoke of the followers of Horus, beings of great wisdom who appeared long before the first dynasty. Sumerian tablets recorded the Apkallu, 7 sages who emerged after a great darkness to teach humanity how to write, build, and navigate. Indigenous American legends describe robed teachers who brought knowledge of the stars, oceans, and agriculture. The similarities suggest that these figures may have been survivors of an even older global culture, carrying fragments of knowledge into a new world.
The founders chose the location of Atlantis with extraordinary precision. Geological studies and ancient star maps imply that the island sat on a powerful intersection of energy lines, places ancient cultures believed amplified natural forces. The land was rich in resources, fertile soil, fresh water, crystals, and rare metals essential for their experiments with energy. Plato described the capital's concentric design, rings of land and water, which functioned both as a defensive structure and as a massive resonance system engineered to manipulate natural energy flows. The more researchers uncover about ancient architecture, the clearer it becomes that Atlantis was not built at random, it was designed. The rapid advancement of Atlantean society is one of its most fascinating traits. Within a short span, the civilization mastered architecture, astronomy, navigation, and metallurgy at a level that modern researchers still struggle to explain. Similarities between structures across the world, pyramids aligned with Orion's belt, megalithic temples with precise acoustic properties, and stonework so advanced it seems beyond Bronze Age capabilities, all hint at a coordinated global tradition with Atlantis as its center. Atlanteans believed the universe operated through frequencies and harmonics. They built structures that were not only physical but also energetic, temples that amplified sound, towers that resonated with Earth's magnetic field, and crystalline devices possibly used for healing or energy storage. Some researchers theorize they used a form of wireless power, echoing the later visions of Nikola Tesla. Evidence of such understanding can be found in ancient sites like the Osirian in Egypt, Baalbek in Lebanon, and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, places constructed with inexplicable engineering precision. At the height of its power, Atlantis was said to be a city of breathtaking beauty and sophistication. Towers plated with precious metals reflected sunlight across the harbor. Massive canals distributed water through the city. Crystalline chambers glowed at night. Scholars, navigators, engineers, and philosophers gathered from every district. The entire capital may have functioned as a gigantic energy conductor, a living machine designed for technological exploration and spiritual advancement. But the same forces that elevated Atlantis eventually contributed to its downfall. Geological instability, rising sea levels, shifting magnetic fields, and astronomical cycles created a period of violent global transformation. Earthquakes rumbled across continents, ice sheets melted. At the worst possible moment, Atlantis fractured internally. One faction remained loyal to the founders' principles of harmony and scientific exploration. Another faction pursued military expansion, political dominance, and dangerous energy experiments. This internal conflict weakened the civilization just as the Earth entered a period of catastrophic upheaval. The final destruction, described in legends from Egypt, Greece, and the Americas, was sudden and brutal. The ground tore open beneath the capital. Fire erupted from the earth. Towers collapsed. Entire districts sank into the sea as massive waves swept across the island. Survivors fled in ships, carrying with them fragments of Atlantean knowledge. These refugees reached Egypt, the Mediterranean, the Americas, and Asia, sparking sudden leaps in culture and technology that historians still cannot explain. Though Atlantis vanished beneath the ocean, its legacy lived on. Egyptian pyramid engineering, Sumerian astronomy, Minoan navigation, Mayan mathematics, Vedic cosmology, and even the Dogon tribe's advanced star knowledge all appear as scattered pieces of a forgotten global tradition. These were not isolated developments. They were echoes of an older, more advanced civilization whose memory survived only through myth, architecture, and fragments of scientific knowledge. The origin of Atlantis may not lie in fantasy, but in a prehistoric world far more complex and advanced than modern history admits. A world erased by cataclysm, but remembered in the stories of gods, sages, and golden ages. And as new discoveries emerge, one truth becomes clearer. Atlantis was not the beginning of human civilization. It was the remnant of something even older, a spark of knowledge carried across ages, waiting to be rediscovered. From the moment Atlantis disappeared beneath the rising oceans, humanity didn't just lose a city. It lost the last connection to a world far older, far more advanced, and far more mysterious than anything recorded in conventional history. The collapse of Atlantis marked the end of an age, but for the survivors who escaped the cataclysm, it became the beginning of an entirely new chapter, one that shaped the future of civilizations across every corner of the world. They did not flee as ordinary refugees. According to ancient traditions, the Atlantean survivors traveled in vessels unlike anything known at the time.
Ships forged from luminous alloys, carved with geometric symbols, and guided not by wind alone, but by astronomical knowledge passed down for thousands of years. These ships carried not treasure, but something far more powerful, the memory of an entire civilization. Scientific principles, star maps, engineering secrets, and philosophies that predated the earliest human kingdoms.
The legends say 7 great vessels left the sinking continent. Each carried a specific group: astronomers, architects, healers, navigators, metallurgists, philosophers, and guardians of sacred knowledge. Their mission was not just survival, but preservation. They sought places where remnants of Atlantean wisdom could take root and grow again in a broken world struggling to rebuild after global chaos. One group sailed east, reaching the ancient lands that would later become Egypt. The priests of ancient Kemet described their arrival with awe, tall figures with deep eyes, speaking a language unlike any they had ever heard. These newcomers possessed knowledge of the stars, mathematics, and sacred architecture so advanced that the early Egyptians considered them semi-divine. They became known as the followers of Horus, teachers who carried the remnants of Atlantean science. Under their guidance emerged the foundations of pyramid engineering, astronomical alignment, and the spiritual systems that would shape Egypt for millennia. Another group crossed westward, reaching the shores of the Americas. There, stories emerged of a mysterious, bearded stranger dressed in shining white, arriving from the sea, known by many names: Viracocha, Quetzalcoatl, Kukulkan. Though cultures differed, the core story was identical: a foreign teacher who brought knowledge of calendars, architecture, agriculture, navigation, and the stars. Entire civilizations, the Maya, the Aztec, the Inca, rose upon frameworks and systems that mirrored the scientific traditions of Atlantis. The parallels are too precise to be coincidence.
Some survivors traveled north, where their influence would manifest in megalithic structures like Stonehenge and the stone circles of Western Europe. These monuments, aligned perfectly with solstices, equinoxes, and lunar cycles, appear suddenly in the archaeological record, with no evolutionary development leading to such engineering precision. Their acoustic chambers, astronomical sightlines, and massive stone blocks reflect knowledge identical to Atlantean methods described in ancient myths.
Others traveled deep into Asia, into the Indian subcontinent, into Tibet, into the early civilizations of China. Their fingerprints appear in Vedic cosmology, in legends of the Manu flood survivors, and in the story of Shambhala, the hidden city of wisdom said to be founded by people who escaped a great destruction across the sea. Even the advanced star charts of early Chinese traditions echo Atlantean astronomical precision.
But perhaps the most mysterious group of survivors stayed close to the Atlantic itself. These people rebuilt a temporary version of their lost homeland on the highest remnant peaks, places like the Azores, the Canary Islands, and mid-Atlantic ridges that still rise above the sea today. Ancient mariners across cultures, from Phoenicians to Celts, wrote of mysterious islands filled with strange ruins and metal pillars, structures now submerged, but once part of what some researchers call Atlantis II, a final attempt to preserve their culture before the last remnants sank beneath the waves.
As centuries passed and the survivors' bloodlines spread across the continents, something remarkable happened. They began forming secret communities dedicated to protecting the last fragments of Atlantean knowledge. These groups evolved into the mystery schools of Egypt, the Pythagorean brotherhoods of Greece, the Druids of Europe, the builders of Gothic cathedrals, and eventually the esoteric societies of the Renaissance. Different names, different eras, same mission: preserve the science, the symbols, and the cosmic principles of Atlantis.
Their knowledge survived through architecture, temples aligned with stars, structures built with impossible precision, resonant chambers that manipulate sound, and monuments that map the heavens. It survived in mathematics, encoded in sacred geometry and universal ratios. It survived in myths, stories of gods descending from the sea, heroes carrying knowledge to a broken world, and golden ages destroyed by cataclysm. But the most important legacy the Atlantean survivors left behind was a message hidden inside symbols, inside engineering, inside stories that seemed like myths, but were actually encrypted memories. A message that said, "We did not vanish. We existed long before recorded history. We carried the light when the world fell into darkness. And we left clues for you to follow, so that one day, when the world is ready, you will remember who you truly are."
Perhaps Atlantis was never just a continent. Perhaps it was a cradle of knowledge, a global network, a blueprint for humanity's forgotten past. And perhaps what we call myth is simply the history we are not yet prepared to understand. Because if the survivors of Atlantis truly seeded the foundations of Egypt, Mesopotamia, India, Mesoamerica, China, and Europe, then the conclusion is inescapable. Our entire understanding of human history is incomplete. And beneath the surface, beneath the oceans, beneath the ruins, beneath the myths, lies the forgotten truth of where civilization truly began.